When U.S. troops captured Japanese General Tomoyuki Yamashita in the Philippines, they found something that would forever change the global financial order. It wasn't an arsenal of weapons. It wasn't secret military documents. It was a map leading to 175 different sites where the largest treasure of stolen gold in human history was hidden, hundreds of thousands of tons of gold, jewels, and valuables looted from 12 Asian countries during World War II. This treasure, known as Yamashita's Gold, wasn't just real. It was found. It was secretly recovered. And what the U.S. government did with it triggered one of the biggest financial conspiracies of the 20th century, the creation of fake gold bonds, black funds for covert operations, and a parallel financing system that has influenced world politics for 80 years. Today, I'm going to reveal a story history books don't tell. A story of betrayal, greed, and financial manipulation on a global scale. A story where Nazi gold, Japanese plunder, and the secrets of the Bank of England intersect to create a hidden wealth system that still operates in the shadows. Get ready, because what you're about to hear sounds like a Hollywood movie, but it's backed by declassified documents, first-hand testimonies, and evidence that governments have tried to hide for decades. To understand this story, we first need to travel back in time to 1937, when Japan launched its massive invasion of China. What began as a military operation quickly turned into the largest systematic plunder in modern history. The Imperial Japanese Army didn't just conquer territories. They methodically looted every city, every town, every temple they found in their path. And when I say looted, I don't mean soldiers grabbing whatever they could carry. I mean a military operation that was organized, planned at the highest levels of the Japanese government, designed specifically to drain Asia of its wealth. Picture this. For 8 years, from 1937 to 1945, Japan plundered China, Manchuria, Korea, the Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, Burma, Thailand, Vietnam, Hong Kong, and Borneo. In each of these places, specialized units of the Japanese Army, known as the Golden Lily Brigades, had a specific mission: confiscate all the gold, silver, jewels, works of art, religious statues, and any valuable objects they could find. And we're not talking about small amounts. We're talking about the gold reserves of entire nations' central banks, the fortunes accumulated over centuries by wealthy families, the treasures of Buddhist and Hindu temples that held thousand-year-old golden relics, silver bars from the richest mines in Asia. Historians estimate that the total value of the plunder, adjusted to today's prices, would exceed $300 billion. Some researchers suggest the real figure could be more than double. To put that into perspective, that's more than the current GDP of countries like Finland or Portugal. But here comes the crucial question: what did Japan do with all that gold? The answer lies in geography. By 1943, Japan controlled an empire stretching from northern China to the islands of the South Pacific. But there was a problem. Moving hundreds of thousands of tons of gold back to the main islands of Japan was extremely dangerous. American submarines and ships were constantly patrolling, sinking any Japanese vessel they found. So the Japanese leaders made a decision: they wouldn't transport the gold to Japan. They would hide it in the safest place within their empire, the place they believed they could defend for the longest time: the Philippines. And the man in charge of this massive hiding operation was General Tomoyuki Yamashita, one of Japan's most capable military officers, nicknamed the Tiger of Malaya for his brilliant conquest of Singapore. But here is the truly chilling part of this story: General Yamashita didn't hide the gold in conventional vaults or military depots. He hid it across 175 different locations throughout the Philippines, in secret tunnels dug into mountains, in natural cave systems, in underground bunkers, and even inside tombs and temples. And to ensure that the secrets would remain hidden forever, he ordered that the prisoners of war and forced laborers who had dug these tunnels be executed once the work was finished. Thousands of men died, buried alive inside the very tunnels they had built, so they could never reveal the treasure's location. Let me describe how this operation worked, because the details are important to understand the scale of what we're talking about. First, the Japanese identified strategic geographic locations: remote mountains, hard-to-reach areas, places that could be defended militarily if necessary. Then, using teams of military engineers and thousands of forced laborers, they dug deep tunnels, some up to 100 meters underground. These were not simple holes in the ground. They were complex tunnel systems with multiple chambers, explosive traps, and flooding mechanisms designed to kill anyone who tried to enter without knowing the exact layout. Some tunnels had multi-ton steel doors. Others were sealed with tons of reinforced concrete. Inside these underground chambers, The Japanese stored the treasure in an organized manner. Gold bars stacked like bricks. Solid gold Buddha statues several meters tall. Crates filled with jewels, diamonds, rubies, emeralds. Ancient Chinese gold coins. Priceless works of art stolen from museums and private collections. And here comes a fascinating detail. The Japanese kept meticulous records of everything. Each site had a number. Each chamber within each site had a detailed inventory. They drew precise maps showing the exact location of each hiding place. Everything was documented because, of course, they planned to return after winning the war to recover all that treasure. But, as we all know, Japan did not win the war. And when General Yamashita was captured by U.S. troops in September 1945, those maps and documents were confiscated. And this is where the official story and the real story begin to diverge dramatically. The official version you'll find in history books is simple. Yamashita's gold is a myth, an urban legend, something that never really existed, or that, if it did exist, was never found. But the evidence tells a completely different story. According to declassified CIA documents and testimonies from U.S. military officers who were there, immediately after Yamashita's capture, a secret team was formed under the direct command of General Douglas MacArthur, the Supreme Commander of Allied forces in the Pacific. This team, operating under absolute secrecy, began using the maps confiscated from Yamashita to locate and recover the hidden gold. And they found it. Not all of it, of course. 175 different sites across an archipelago of more than 7,000 islands is an enormous task. But they found enough. Let me read you a specific testimony. In 1986, a former CIA agent named Robert Curtis testified under oath that he personally participated in recovery operations of Yamashita's gold during the 1960s and 1970s. He described how specialized teams, using the most advanced excavation equipment available, opened the Japanese tunnels and extracted tons of gold. Curtis claimed to have personally seen underground chambers the size of gymnasiums, filled with gold bars stacked up to the ceiling. He described solid gold Buddha statues so large they required special cranes to move them. He spoke of sealed crates filled with jewels that, when opened, contained fortunes that would outshine the treasures of the world's greatest museums. But here comes the question that changes everything. If the United States recovered hundreds, perhaps thousands of tons of gold, what did they do with it? Where is it now? Why did it never appear in the official records? The answer, according to researchers who have dedicated decades to this topic, is that this gold became the foundation of a parallel, secret financial system designed to fund covert U.S. government operations without congressional oversight, without public approval, and without leaving traces in official budgets. This system had an internal name, the Black Fund, or the Black Eagle Trust. And the way it worked was through something called bearer bonds backed by gold. Before we continue with this shocking revelation, if you're enjoying this content and want to keep uncovering the hidden stories that have shaped our world, I invite you to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell. Every week we reveal historical truths that will make you question everything you thought you knew. And now, let's talk about how this gold became a secret financial weapon. To understand gold bonds, I first need to explain what a bearer bond is. It's a financial instrument that basically says, whoever holds this document in their hands can redeem it for X amount of money or its equivalent in gold. It's not registered under anyone's name. It is literally to the bearer, just as its name says. Now, according to the research of financial journalists and leaked documents over the years, what the United States did was use the gold recovered from Japan's plunder to create massive issuances of bearer bonds, supposedly backed by that physical gold. But here's the brilliant and dark twist. These bonds were never registered in official financial systems. They don't appear in the U.S. Treasury's books. They're not documented in Federal Reserve records. Officially, they don't exist. However, according to numerous testimonies and documents that have come to light, these bonds were used for decades to finance operations that the U.S. government could not, or did not want to, finance openly. CIA covert operations in Latin America? Funded with these bonds. Secret support for anti-communist dictatorial governments? Funded with these bonds. Weapons development programs that even Congress didn't know about? Funded with these bonds. And it wasn't just the United States. According to researchers, Great Britain was also involved through the Bank of England. During the war, the British had confiscated huge amounts of Nazi gold in Europe. At the end of the war, part of that gold was never returned to its legitimate owners. It simply disappeared. Where did it go? According to leaked documents, that Nazi gold combined with Yamashita's gold formed the foundation of a secret financing system that operated outside any normal legal oversight. The Bank of England, one of the world's oldest and most respected financial institutions, allegedly issued its own secret gold bonds, backed by this gold of questionable origin. These bonds then circulated in clandestine financial markets, known only to a small circle of elite bankers, intelligence chiefs, and high-level politicians. But the story becomes even more complicated when we talk about the role of Ferdinand Marcos, the dictator who ruled the Philippines from 1965 to 1986. Marcos, who was a lawyer before becoming a politician, was fully aware of the stories surrounding Yamashita's gold. In fact, there is substantial evidence that Marcos himself was directly involved in gold recovery operations during his presidency. Here's the fascinating part. When Marcos was overthrown in 1986 and forced to flee the Philippines, he took with him a personal treasure estimated at billions of dollars. The question everyone asked was, where did Marcos get all that wealth? The Philippines was a relatively poor country. His salary as president didn't explain even a fraction of his fortune. The answer, according to researchers, lies in Yamashita's gold. Marcos made a deal with the CIA and the U.S. government. He would provide political and military support during the Cold War, allow U.S. military bases on Philippine soil, and in exchange, he would be allowed to keep a portion of the gold recovered on Filipino territory. It was a corrupt deal, of course, but from the U.S. perspective, it was convenient. Marcos was anti-communist, allowed the United States to project military power across Asia, and was willing to remain silent about the gold recovery operations. For 20 years, teams operating under Marcos's government located and opened numerous Yamashita gold sites. The gold was divided, one portion for Marcos personally, ending up in Swiss bank accounts under his name, another portion for the Philippine government, which Marcos controlled anyway, and the lion's share for the Americans, who funneled it into the secret bond system I already described. But when Marcos was overthrown in 1986, legal claims began to emerge. The most famous was filed by Roger Roxas, a Filipino locksmith who claimed to have discovered part of Yamashita's treasure in 1971, only for Marcos to confiscate it at gunpoint. Roxas filed a lawsuit in a U.S. court against the Marcos estate, claiming that his discovery had been stolen. And in 1996, in a stunning verdict, a Hawaii court ruled in favor of Roxas, ordering the Marcos estate to pay $22 billion in damages. $22 billion. For a single treasure site. That gives you an idea of the scale we're talking about. Although Roxas never received the full amount due to legal complications, the verdict was significant because it officially confirmed, in a court of law, that Yamashita's gold was real, that it had been found, and that Marcos had illegally confiscated it. Now, this is where the story becomes even more complicated and enters the territory of the truly dark. If this system of secret bonds backed by Yamashita's gold and Nazi gold really existed, it was inevitably going to create a problem: counterfeiters. And indeed, since the 1980s, literally thousands of people around the world have appeared claiming to possess authentic gold bonds from the World War II era. Some of these bonds have absurd face values: $100 million, $500 million, even $1 billion per individual bond. These bonds circulate in a strange financial underworld, where scammers, dreamers, and occasionally people who might actually have authentic documents try to redeem these instruments at legitimate banks. The problem is that distinguishing between authentic bonds from the original secret system and counterfeit ones is practically impossible. Official banks deny the existence of any such bonds. They say they are all fake, without exception. But from time to time, cases emerge that challenge this simple explanation. In 2009, for example, 2 Japanese men were arrested at the border between Italy and Switzerland carrying U.S. bearer bonds with a face value of $134 billion. Authorities declared the bonds to be fake, but never satisfactorily explained why 2 respectable Japanese citizens would attempt to cross a border carrying such obviously ridiculous counterfeits. Some investigators suggest that case was real, that those bonds were part of the secret system, and that they were confiscated precisely because their authenticity would have revealed the existence of the entire system. Other similar cases have occurred in the Philippines, in Switzerland, in Hong Kong. Always the same pattern: bonds with enormous values, arrests, official statements saying they are fake, but never real criminal trials or complete explanations. So, what does all of this mean today? Why should we care about a story of buried gold from 80 years ago? The answer is that, if this story is true, and there is substantial evidence that at least parts of it are, it means that for decades a parallel financial system has existed, operating completely outside any democratic oversight. It means wars were funded, governments were overthrown, dictators were supported, and covert operations were carried out using money that never appeared in any official budget, money that was technically stolen from the nations of Asia and Europe during the war. It means that the international financial order we know, with its respectable institutions like the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, and national central banks, may have a dark side that has never been fully revealed or examined. And here's the most disturbing part: if this system existed, it probably still exists in some form. Black funds don't simply disappear because a war ends. Intelligence agencies still need funding outside official budgets. Geopolitical interests still require operations that cannot be publicly acknowledged. Declassified CIA documents clearly show that during the Cold War, the agency ran massive programs that were never approved by Congress nor funded through normal channels. Where did the money come from? The question remains partially unanswered. Now, I need to be completely honest with you. This story exists in a gray area between verified historical fact and conspiracy theory. There are elements that are absolutely proven. The Japanese looting of Asia happened, and it was massive. General Yamashita existed and was executed for war crimes. Treasure sites have been found in the Philippines, and some of them contain gold and valuable artifacts. Marcos accumulated an inexplicable fortune that clearly did not come from his salary alone. Nazi gold was stolen and not all of it was returned. But other elements are more difficult to verify: the exact scale of the recovery operations, the existence of the secret bond system, the precise role of the Bank of England, the specific connections to CIA covert operations. Governments deny all of this, of course. Official documents do not confirm these allegations. And many respectable scholars dismiss the entire story as an elaborate urban legend. But here's what makes me believe that there is substantial truth in this story: the amount of circumstantial evidence is overwhelming. The testimonies of multiple witnesses who do not know each other match in specific details. The legal cases, although inconclusive, suggest that something real is being concealed. And the behavior of governments, refusing to declassify relevant documents even 80 years later, suggests that there are secrets they still want to protect. And that brings us to the end of this incredible story of Yamashita's gold, the secret bonds, and the shadow financial system that has potentially influenced the world for 80 years. Is it all true? We will probably never know with absolute certainty. Governments keep secrets, especially secrets involving enormous amounts of money and illegal or ethically questionable operations. But what we do know is this: during World War II, massive quantities of gold were stolen. That gold ended up somewhere. And the governments that won the war had access to that gold without ever having to publicly explain what they did with it. We also know that during the Cold War, American and British intelligence agencies carried out massive operations that required funding that does not appear in official budget records. That money came from somewhere. And we know that figures like Ferdinand Marcos accumulated gigantic fortunes in ways that have never been fully explained, but that are clearly connected to searches for hidden wartime treasure. Connecting all these dots definitely requires a degree of speculation. But the bigger picture that emerges is one of a system in which gold stolen during the war became a tool of power in the post-war world, used to finance operations that democracies would never have approved if they had been subjected to public vote. If this story has fascinated you and you want to keep exploring the hidden secrets of history, the financial mysteries that shaped our world, and the uncomfortable truths the powerful prefer to keep buried, subscribe to the channel right now. Give this video a like so more people can discover this story. And let me know in the comments, do you think Yamashita's gold is real? Do you believe governments are hiding something? Do you know of any similar cases? Share this video with people who enjoy real history. The kind that goes beyond what we were taught in school. Because the truth, as the saying goes, is stranger than fiction. I'll see you in the next video, where we'll continue revealing the stories that changed the world but were erased from the official history books. Until then, keep your mind open and your skepticism healthy.